There has never been a better time to be a car. Formula One has grown exponentially in the global sports market. Celebrities, influencers, your sister, everyone is becoming interested in the sport. We even got an Apple produced F1 movie this year starring Damson Idris and Brad Pitt. Now, am I a car guy? I used to say no to that question because, frankly, my car knowledge extends to pretty much knowing the difference between auto and stick and being able to tell when my brake pads are going. But does that matter? No. What makes people interested in racing is not simply the mechanics, but the legacies, the stakes, and the stories. And being that this channel talks about movies, we need to talk about the greatest car movie you've never seen, and that's Speed Racer. Now, if by any chance you've heard of this masterpiece, you probably heard that it's mid, but critics, audiences, they don't know ball, but I know ball. Let's break it down. Speed Racer was written and directed by the Wachowski twins. You may be thinking, hey, the Wachowski twins, where have I heard that name before? Well, over 25 years ago, they did a little movie that you may have heard of called The Matrix. Yeah, anyway, the actual IP Speed Racer is based on the Japanese manga, originally named Mach Go 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 by legend Tatsuo Yoshida in 1966 from Shonen Jump magazine. Later, it would be adapted into an anime airing 52 episodes and an American version, which renamed it to the iconic Speed Racer. Now, I don't really know what made the Wachowskis want to do a live action reboot of a beloved Japanese manga anime from 4 decades prior, but clearly they had the vision and the green light because this movie cost $120 million in 2008. That's real recession dollars. And speaking of recession, this movie bombed at the box office, like hard. And could an American recession where people were losing their houses have something to do with it? Or perhaps the movie's heavy use of CGI? Who's to say? All I know is they were wrong. They were all wrong. Speed Racer is a movie that, quite frankly, I just think audiences simply weren't ready for. While I hold and hear the critiques about the film's particular style and CGI use, I aim to argue that every choice made by the Wachowskis serves the film's narrative and what I believe they were trying to say. But first and foremost, I want to put you guys onto an absolute gem of cinema. I feel like before I even get into the story, which is frankly so freaking good, I need to help build the world a bit here because the world in which this movie takes place is one of the most unique and insane ones I've ever seen on film. It is this futuristic Technicolor world where the suburbs sort of look like an episode of Lazy Town and the city is a corporate capitalist playground of impossibly high skyscrapers and next century tech. But I think most importantly, this world is a technocracy where corporations creating technology own and control everything from finance to politics, which feels insanely prophetic given we're arguably in the first stages of a technocracy. And racing is a huge part of this society in that it brings forth innovation that can later be packaged and sold to the public. It is sort of like the idea that every piece of tech that we have now, the military industrial complex produced years before. And Wachowskis illustrate this point so well, especially with the antagonist, but we'll get into that later. Let's continue with the story. In the film, we open on a young Speed and a parent-teacher conference between his teacher and his mother, who was played by Susan Sarandon. By the way, this movie has a fucking dope cast of amazing actors who are generally putting in great performances. But this first scene really sets a tone for our movie because it puts us in the mind of our protagonist while also introducing the dynamic of the Racer family. I really have to applaud the directors for capturing the wonder of a child's imagination so well. Colors, the camera work, the use of the theme. Mwah. Honestly, my favorite part of the movie is the first 25 minutes, which essentially tell the story of the OG Racer family. Pops, Mom, Speed, and Rex, Speed's older brother, while being intercut with scenes from the present day. The present day features a grown-up Speed competing as a professional driver in a prestigious race. And as the race is unfolding, we get a setup to one of the two driving conflicts in the story. Now, I'm not going to spoil it, but Speed is essentially living in / trying to outrun the shadow of his older brother Rex, a talented but troubled driver who became estranged from the Racer family when Speed was a child. This is the first conflict, as Rex is a taboo subject not just in the Racer family, but the racing world period, and how Speed interacts with this taboo is a large part of his character arc. I also quickly want to go over some of the cast because like I mentioned, it is awesome. We got Emile Hirsch as Speed Racer, Christina Ricci as Trixie, Speed's girlfriend, John Goodman as Pops Racer, Susan Sarandon as Mom Racer, Scott Porter as Rex Racer, Polly Litt as Sprito Racer, and Kit Gurry as Sparky. And I think the dopest thing about this cast is that they feel like a real family. They just feel like an incredibly real archetype of a family. Soon after Speed wins the race, we are introduced to Royalton, a smooth-talking, cutthroat businessman played by Roger Lamb, who is the CEO of one of these technocratic corporations. Now, I'm not going to get off track here, but I really want to mention how much I feel like what Royalton is and what he stands for reminds me of certain tech billionaires we see in the news often. Just watch the movie and think of that guy when you see this guy. Anyhow, Royalton basically offers Speed a chance to join the Royalton race team. Speed declines, and Royalton basically vows to ruin Speed's life. The rest of the film basically is spent dealing with these two conflicts. I bring them up because obviously these conflicts speak to the main ideas of the film and what I think Speed Racer is all about. Speed Racer is most definitely a capitalist critique, specifically of corporations and their never-ending pursuit of profit and growing monopoly. In this world, there are a number of different fictional corporations that are vying for the economic power that innovations in the racing sport seem to create. Royalton Racing is exactly this. They participate in strong-hand acquisitions, IP theft, corporate espionage, and murder plots, all for the edge in this economic game. To be honest, not so unlike many other corporations that exist in our world. Now, corporations are bad is perhaps obvious. However, I feel it's their role in racing in this film that not only serves the narrative well, but also displays to us, the audience, how conglomerates can influence just one single industry. And with that, Royalton's threats to Speed and his family feel like they are very much in real danger. With the introduction of Royalton, behind the backdrop of this incredible world, we are able to see how the struggle of Speed and his family is so closely aligned with so many working class people. The Racer family is attempting to survive and make a living for themselves in an industry controlled by a powerful few, who use wealth, intimidation, and crime to prevent anyone who dares stand tall in the face of giants. And this brings me to what I believe is the most important theme of this movie, and that is courage. Courage, by definition, is the ability to do something that frightens one. And the important thing that Speed Racer says about courage is how much it can be strengthened by the support of others. From the beginning of the film, Speed is put into an impossibly difficult situation, but it is the presence of his family that helps him make the hard choice of saying no to Royalton. And when the consequence of that choice leads Speed down a difficult path, it is again his family that grounds him into facing fear and uncertainty. Seriously, there are so many wonderful moments Speed shares with his family in this film that reinforce how important the family unit is. To have courage, to stand up to bullies, to corporations, to corrupt politicians, and to do what's right. For me, I believe the Wachowski twins use Speed Racer as a vessel to comment on their own artistic experiences and the courage they had to display in order to express themselves. And this is shown through the film's themes, but also in the striking style. This is why I defend the heavy CGI use, because it is so visually distinct and so expressive of the driving styles seen in the film. Speed and his driving throughout the film are described like watching an artist paint. An allegory I believe is intentional to mark how the audience should perceive Speed and his passion. He is a once-in-a-generation artist who has industries that are trying to control how he paints and who he paints for. Something that I believe every artist can understand. You might think I'm crazy, but to me, Speed Racer isn't just my favorite movie from my childhood, it is one of the most important films for anyone to see.